Are introverts sex addicts? Most people have no clue why. Let's slow this down. The phrase, introverts are sex addicts, is jarring, almost offensive. It sounds like a stereotype at best, or a projection at worst. But if we strip away the surface-level shock and take a deeper look, there's a truth hiding behind the noise. Not a universal truth, not a judgment, but a pattern, one worth unpacking. Because the reality is, when you start listening to introverted men and women, really listening, you'll often find an inner world filled with craving, intensity, longing, and energy that doesn't always get a clear or healthy outlet. And sometimes, that energy gets channeled into sex, but not the way you might think. Not addicted to sex, addicted to escape. Let's be clear, introverts aren't addicted to sex as an act. They're often drawn to what sex represents: connection without small talk, intensity without pretense, emotional release without exposure. You see, introverts often feel like they don't quite belong in a world built on performance and noise. They're misunderstood in crowds, overlooked in group settings, and drained by environments that reward the loudest voice in the room. So they retreat. But retreating doesn't mean their needs disappear. In fact, introverts tend to experience emotions more deeply. When they're in love, they love hard. When they're hurt, the wound runs deep. And when they crave something, they often crave it with quiet intensity. So for some introverts, sex becomes a private gateway, not just to pleasure, but to escape. Escape from loneliness, escape from social exhaustion, escape from the pressure to perform or explain. It becomes the one place they can finally shut the world out and feel alive. The power of the inner world. Here's what most people don't realize. Introverts live 90% of their lives in their heads. Their imagination, their thoughts, their memories, their fantasies, these things are incredibly vivid. They can remember a touch from years ago, replay a kiss in their minds 1,000 times, build entire worlds off a glance, a voice, or a scent. So when it comes to sexuality, it's rarely just physical. For the introvert, sex can become something sacred, emotional, spiritual, even obsessive, because it's not just about the body, it's about meaning, depth, vulnerability, the kind of connection they often don't experience in everyday life. This is why many introverts are drawn to intense emotional or even taboo sexual experiences, not because they're perverted or reckless, but because those experiences break the surface-level noise and reach something deeper inside them. In a world that constantly feels shallow, sex becomes a way to dive deep, fast. Isolation plus desire equals risk. But there's a dark side to this. Because introverts spend so much time alone, their desires often go unchecked, not shared, not expressed, just stored, quietly, day after day, until it builds and builds and builds. When that longing finally needs an outlet, it can come out in unhealthy or even self-destructive ways. This is where the label sex addict gets unfairly thrown around. Not all introverts are sex addicts, but many are emotionally isolated individuals who use sex, whether real or imagined, as a coping mechanism for unmet emotional needs. They're not addicted to sex, they're addicted to feeling something. What they really crave. If you strip away the lust, the labels, and the late-night fantasies, you'll often find something painfully simple underneath. Connection, intimacy, safety, being understood. Introverts are not cold or distant, they're guarded. They don't open easily, but when they do, they open fully. And that kind of emotional availability requires an environment where they feel safe, seen, not judged for their silence or sensitivity. In sex, especially in private, they can show that side. They can be intense, passionate, bold, honest, even dominant or submissive because they trust the space. So if you're with an introvert who seems unusually sexual, it may not be that they're addicted. It may be that they're finally expressing emotions they've had no other place to share. Healing through awareness. The takeaway isn't to shame or diagnose introverts, it's to understand them. If you're an introvert seeing this and something inside you feels seen, know that you're not broken. Your need for deep connection doesn't make you weak. Your fantasies don't make you dirty. Your quiet craving doesn't make you addicted. but you do need to pay attention to your patterns. Are you using sex, or the idea of it, to avoid your loneliness? Are you hiding your real emotional needs behind intensity? Are you confusing lust with the deeper longing to be loved? These are the hard questions, and they deserve honest answers, because once you get clear about what you really crave, not just physically, but emotionally, you can begin to pursue it in healthier, more life-giving ways. If you love an introvert who seems overly sexual, don't judge them. Be curious, listen, ask what they're feeling, not just what they're doing. Help them build trust, not walls. Understand that for them, sex may not be about release, it might be about being fully seen, and that's sacred. Final thoughts. Depth over labels. The truth is, the phrase "introverts are sex addicts" is a lazy way of describing a much deeper truth. Many introverts are deeply emotional beings looking for safe spaces to express the parts of themselves they've had to hide. Sometimes, sex becomes that space, not because they're broken, but because they're human. And when you give an introvert a space to be fully themselves, seen, heard, valued, not only will they surprise you with their emotional depth, but you'll also find that what looked like addiction was actually longing for connection, longing for peace, longing for love without performance. And isn't that something we all want?